What does he want out of a car?
Utility?
Yeah, simplicity, utility. What do you want out of a car?
Hi everybody, I'm Trin and welcome back to Reintention. Today I'm super excited to share with you my experiences and what I learned out of attending Tony Robbins yesterday in Melbourne. Tony was absolutely amazing. He was so energizing. He came in there and the crowd was really quite reserved and quiet, and by the end of the session everyone was jumping and full of energy and full of joy. Most importantly for me, it was what I took away from Tony that helped me revolutionize my life and reinvent for success. So what were the couple of key pearls of wisdom that I took out of Tony's conference yesterday? The first one is around peak state. Now, peak state is around having high energy. And what drives high energy? Mindfulness. So performing at a peak state enables that we have the right behaviors and actions to work for success. And we drive for results. Results are driven by the coalescence of action divided by behavior. And only when we are at peak states are we able to achieve our full potential. What do we truly want in life? Do we want success? Do we want fame? Do we want money? Do we want love? What we're really striving for in life is to have extraordinary experiences. Energy is a habit. Therefore, it's our daily practices, the way we focus, the way we approach things in life, and the coalescence of the people around us that influence us and our behaviors. As Jim Rohn said, we are the sum of the top 5 people around us. Therefore, we should always strive to keep ourselves around positive people. How else do we create positive energy or high peak state energy? Through motion. Emotion is driven through motion. So that's why when you go to any Tony Robbins or any high performing entrepreneur or business coach or business strategist event, you'll see them jumping up and down full of energy, because energy and movement creates a lot of strength and a lot of positivity. The second key thing Tony talks about is focus. Now, we can change our physiology through what we focus on. And there are 3 key questions that Tony asks around focus. The first one is, what are we focusing on? Are we focusing on what we have versus what we can't have? Are we focusing on what we can't or can control? Or are we focused on the past, present, or future? Ideally, we want to be focused on what we can control, what is in our realm of influence, and what we do have in the present moment. Too much looking in the past or future means that we aren't actually focused on what we have. The second element of focus is actually around the meaning we give it. Do we interpret things as positive or negative? Do we interpret things as through a victim lens or blame of why has this happened to me? Or are we proactive and actually take accountability for the decisions we've made in life and why we've ended up where we are? The last element of focus is quite a straightforward one. What are we going to do? So we've understood what our focus is, we've understood the meaning that we've given it. And lastly, what actually are we going to do? Are we going to have positive action, or are we going to take negative action around our focus? One of the other topics that Tony talked about, which I found really, really interesting, was around the concept of unconscious versus conscious mind. I think most of us strive for success in life, but what we don't realize is that our unconscious mind is what drives our behaviors, not what we're consciously thinking. While we might strive for success, we want success, we want to do everything in our control that can actually yield success, our unconscious mind is often the driver of self-limiting beliefs and also unconscious behavior around fears, doubts, fear of judgment, fear of failure. For me, one of my biggest things from the unconscious mind is overthinking. Overthinking about what if this goes wrong, what if this goes right, what does this person think of me? Tony further on goes to explain that we don't strive for change or challenge the status quo because it's uncomfortable, because it's painful. But the reality is, pain can either drive us or destroy us. It's our choice. One of the next concepts that Tony mentioned yesterday in the conference was around influence. Now, I've been a really big fan of Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Therefore, when I heard Tony start to talk about this, I was really intrigued. What else could he add that hadn't already been discovered or explored through the works of Dale Carnegie and the likes? One thing that Tony mentioned that stood out to me was around influencing others. We go out there to influence others based on how we would like to be influenced. When reality is, what we need to do is when we try to influence other people, we should try to influence them from their perspective, from their shoes, about how they see and view the world, not how we would like to be influenced. There are two keys to living an extraordinary life. One is the state that we're in, which I've already explored, is around being in a high energy or peak state. And the second is the blueprint, which is the blueprint of our life, our values, the way we see things, our expectations, our beliefs, our cultural conditionings, and how we can rewire these to actually strive for success and being better. The last concept that Tony mentions, which I think ties in the whole topic really well, is around how to get rid of, or how to rid ourselves of a suffering state and moving towards a beautiful state. Now, if you've heard the term beautiful state, it was coined by One World Academy, where we live in ideally two states in life, in a beautiful state, and everything that's not a beautiful state is a suffering state. So Tony brings all of the concepts around influence, peak state, motion, control, all of the topics from the day back into 4 key steps of how to rid of suffering and move into an extraordinary, beautiful life. And those 4 key steps are, number 1, understanding that life is too short to suffer and that we should celebrate living in a beautiful state now. I thought that was so empowering and so just amazing, because it's actually us taking a stand. It's taking a stand and saying, no, I'm not going to suffer. I'm not going to be bogged down. I'm not going to be depressed, and choosing to be happy and choosing to be in a positive state. The second step is actually understanding what type of suffering you have, or as Tony puts it, what kind of emotional suffering, or what flavor is your emotional suffering. For me, my suffering has always been overthinking, fear, and judgment. For some people, it's fear of loss. For some people, it's embarrassment. For some people, it's money, power. You have to understand what your emotional drivers are, and you need to understand what your emotional suffering is. And I think that takes a lot of self-discovery and also introspective reflection, and understanding what your pain points are and what has hurt you over time. The third step is to understand and take curiosity for your suffering. For me, that is taking a step back and understanding what the triggers are. When do I get upset? When do I become afraid of fear and judgment, and get a little bit self-conscious, or don't speak so loudly, or put my hand up for something. Understanding those triggers and breaking away from them. The last step is actually one that I find really, really empowering, and that is turn suffering into gratitude. One of the things that I heard recently was the concept called expectation escalation. I think in life now we expect things to happen so quickly. We expect things to always be of such high quality. We expect the most from ourselves, our peers, our families, our friends. When reality is that things, fail, things don't work out always as we'd like. So we shouldn't have that expectation. I think once we have that expectation, it sets us up for disappointment. It sets us up for failure. It sets us up for being upset, when we should really be grateful. Anything can be positive. Anything can make you happy. It just depends on the lens you have on it. So instead of seeing the glass as half empty, seeing it as more than just half full, being grateful that you even have a glass of water. And the power of gratitude is just remarkable. At the end of the, 4 hours that Tony was there, we did a very short, quiet meditation. And in that meditation, he took us through some very basic breathing techniques, and also, a simple gratitude technique around 2 things in your life that you're grateful for, and think about not just the stories or the events, but the emotions you felt. Because for us, the biggest ties in life are not just what happened, but what we feel from what happened. So turning expectation, turning anger and suffering into gratitude is such an empowering thing. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you can like, share, or subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. And until next time, bye.